In an unprecedented move, members of the United Nations have provided written suggestions with respect to the structure of the UN Security Council, a group of 15 countries in charge of identifying threats to peace and determining the appropriate course of action. Recently, India has brought up concerns that many nations, including themselves and countries within Africa, are not being fairly represented. So it got us wondering, how does the UN Security Council work and why are so many countries upset with the way it's run? Well, the United Nations as a whole was established after World War II with 51 founding countries on board, though today 193 countries participate, almost all of them. Its aim is to maintain peace and security. It has developed multiple programs and 6 main governing bodies in areas like economics, human rights, and social policy. But arguably one of the most contentious parts of the UN is the UN Security Council. The contention stems largely from the Council's power, structure, and effectiveness. In terms of power, it is the only body in the UN that can issue binding resolutions to other states. So if the 15-member council passes a substantive resolution, all 193 members are obliged to follow through. As you can imagine, member states at large do not always agree with the council, which has led to some instances of dissent. What makes these resolutions particularly complex is that they deal with policies surrounding peacekeeping operations, sanctions to offending states, and even authorization of military action. This is all within the Security Council's purview. So some do argue that this sets up a dynamic where the 15 represented countries are unfairly governing. At issue is also that the Security Council structure itself is inherently biased. It does not treat all 15 member states equally. Indeed, it divides its membership between permanent and temporary members. China, the United States, the United Kingdom, Russia, and France all have permanent status within the Council, which has been the case since its inception. The other 10 slots are temporary, and membership is given to a country for a period of only 2 years, though a single country can receive membership consecutively. But perhaps the most significant difference between temporary and permanent members is that any decision made within the Council can be vetoed by just one of the 5 permanent members. Thus, this veto power has been largely criticized as undemocratic, unfairly resting too much power in too few hands. And since the Council's inception, more than 200 substantive resolutions have been vetoed by permanent members. As such, this veto power has been placed by critics at the root of inaction, like when Russia and China vetoed a resolution to sanction North Korea's human rights violations, which included outsourcing their people to work in slave-like conditions. Which brings us to perhaps the largest criticism of the Security Council, that with the countless ongoing wars and human rights violations, it fails at its aims to maintain security and peace. Nonetheless, what the UN does accomplish should not be dismissed, including the more than 60 peacekeeping missions impacting millions of lives. But to learn more about the United Nations' effectiveness, head on over to our friends at Testum News by clicking here.
The Assembly meets annually in September and debates issues on security and diplomacy. In 2015, the major topic is climate change and helping developing countries face the threat of global warming.
Thanks for watching, and be sure to subscribe.